Thank you all so much for being here. I couldn't be more thrilled to have flown all the way across the country to be here with this vision in lavender. My dear friend, Prabal Gurung. Now, I have admired and been in awe of Prabal long before I ever met him, because Nepal is one of my favorite countries in the world. I have had an opportunity to visit a couple of times with my dear friend, Dr. Ruit, who is sitting here in the front row. It's a tiny country nestled between China and India. And so when I first found out that this Nepali designer was designing for the likes of Michelle Obama and Oprah, Sarah Jessica Parker, and had become a darling of the Met and the world of high fashion, I was just so impressed. But we met during a time that was far less glamorous. We met during the pandemic, when attacks on people who look like us were escalating rapidly. And so a group of us came together from different aspects of the media, in fashion, and politics, and we really leaned on each other. We cried with each other, and we stood up together against so much of the violence that was being perpetrated in our community. And I think our bond became pretty unbreakable, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and so I have just come to respect my friend Prabal so much for his artistry, for his incredible writing, which hopefully you've all read by now, but really because he's such a truly decent human being. And I especially love him because we have the same taste in men. We really do. Am I not right?
Let me just, I'm quickly scanning the room if it's like an age-appropriate conversation or not, you know. Well, yes, you have good taste.
Yes, so do you. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's get into this.
And I know, it's so funny.
Because this is another talk, right?
Yeah, I knew you were going there.
Prabal, first of all, I want to congratulate you on this book because it is so raw and honest and absolutely beautifully written. Why did you want to write Walk Like a Girl, and why now?
Before I start that, I just want to acknowledge the Asia Society and also Neelam and everyone involved. Like, that was like a beautiful intro. And to you, you know, in a city that often, and in a country that is like we're visiting initially, and oftentimes even with the citizenship and that is like, you know, a physical passport that you get, that you belong, sometimes you don't feel like you belong. And so to have a friend like you who sees you for who one is and one hopes to be is not only just like it's like, you know, just something that I'm grateful for, but it's a privilege, it's an honor, but, you know, something that really humbles me. So thank you very much for flying all the way. To answer your question, why I wanted to write this book was, I no longer wanted to carry the story on my own. You know, for the longest period of time, people who look like us, people who look like me, we've been told that our existence is too much or too little, or just like never enough. You know, we have been asked so many times to diminish ourselves or diminish our, you know, like diminish our stories and like demean. In that process, it's very demeaning of like our whole existence. So I wanted to tell a story that I felt once I share it, hopefully all of you, all the people who've read can find themselves there. And in return, like they have the courage to tell their own. Where I think oftentimes what happens is, especially people, when we don't look like the majority, even though we are, like, you know, when we don't look like the perceived majority, what happens is we are often afraid to tell our own stories. And there's not, you know, like I'm someone who goes to bookstores and goes to this book readings and everything. There are not many people who look like us telling our stories, right? You know, so oftentimes someone else is telling our stories. So I wanted to share this. So hopefully it resonates deeply with people and it frees them from any kind of hesitation or burden. Because what I've realized is, I've known this as a creative person and a fashion person, that storytelling is the one that connects everyone, and that connection is what heals us. You know, and so my hope was with this book, hopefully with the resonance, there's some healing that happens, and the conversation that oftentimes in our community, in our diaspora, the only celebration is of excellence. And that's the only thing that gets highlighted. The trauma behind our existence is a real hard truth. And, people see the shiny, fabulous life that I live, but most of the joys are really hard earned. And I didn't want to pretend any longer simply because I would go around the country and the continent and in schools and even my friends whom they would always say to me, "You make it seem so easy." Then I kept on thinking to myself, have I given this wrong impression that just because I'm not someone who complains a lot about what I do, because I'm really grateful for what I do, and have I in turn, have I created this a myth that in order for you to be successful, you have to be like me, just kind of almost veering towards toxic positivity. So I really had to reel it back and be like, wait a second, I want to tell the truth, because all of us know in this particular world, in this part of the world, to exist looking like the way we do, with our truths, with our culture, with the food that has fragrances that are alien to so many of them, I know how daunting it can be. I kind of wanted to say, listen, I've been through that. I want to share it unabashedly, really open it out there for you so that you too can say that you too can. Because I remember as a little kid looking outside the window, trying to find a refuge besides my home in the outside world, not finding. I was looking for a book like this. There I could find myself, maybe semblance of it, And the only thing that I got besides my love for my mother and my siblings was the glimpses of Elsa Clench on CNN or an Oprah, it's glimpses of America. It gave me hope. So it's a long-winded answer.
No, but it's interesting that you mentioned this idea of our people in our community sort of wanting to wrap ourselves in this almost this mask of excellence.
Yeah.
Because I was surprised to read that you weren't a good student growing up, which I imagine could be a source of shame among Asian Americans. Why was it so important for you to write specifically about that in this book?
I mean, if you have kids, you'll know, especially in today's world. And we also know the pressure of the social media, trying to be perfect. And I always feel the pressure is so high for everyone in today's world. It's almost triggering just to exist. You turn on your phone, you wake up in the morning, you turn on your phone, everything is in the highlight of someone's life it's insane. You can't match up to it. I just wanted to dispel that. It was important for me because the only reason I'm here today and having this conversation and, doing things that I love and being able to, dress incredible women is simply because my mother allowed me to be myself. Her version of excellence to me was not what was I would say, the norm set by the society. Her version of excellence for me was my joy. It was as simple as that. For her, she was like, I believe in you. I see the potential. You're not like the rest of the people. The rest of my sister who's here, she was an excellent student. So was my brother. The pressure to live up to them was really, really high. But my mother never once compared me to them. I still remember in school in St. Xavier's, I remember one of the teachers, she said, oh, Prabal is okay. And he's not like Pravish is my brother's name. He's not as good as Pravish. And I'll never forget my mother's answer to that teacher said to her, two of my sons are vastly different. I don't compare them. You shouldn't be. That in itself, sitting behind her, holding her hand, because I was cowering in front of this teacher, I'll never forget the strength I felt at the time. And I was like, and that has been the roadmap for me, And so...
And Prabal, this book really is an homage to your mother.
Yes.
Can you talk about the moment as a boy when she really gave you that permission to be you? You in all your glory.
Yes, exactly. I can't talk about my mother without being emotional, simply because, she is... ever since I can remember, as young as I can remember, she's never once said to me, don't be who you are. Never once. She has been my partner in crime. I remember, I write in the book, like when I was trying on her lipstick and makeup and everything, when she caught me, I was petrified, but instead she came over and she made sure that it was correctly done. Like, that's not how you wear your lipstick. That's not how and she was very much like that. And I recently, I would say a year ago, I asked my mother when I was home in Nepal, I said, Mami, like, what made you think it was okay for me to dress up in my sister's clothes? And she said, you would look at that pink ruffled dress that your sister necessarily didn't like, but you loved, and you were mesmerized by it. And as a mother, when I look at my child and saw that happiness, how can I deny that? And I didn't even, and she said, and it's clothes, it's inanimate objects, they don't have gender, so she never understood that. So my mom really, I don't know, it's perhaps because she went through all the challenges that she went as a woman, I write all of that in book. And it's simply because I think I think that's the purest kind of love. It's like, and I always say it again, I love my mother very, very much. They used to say for Nepali people, "Ama ko puchar," which is like mother's tale. That's what they used to say. I would never leave aside. But I also like her. My mother is a friend. I can talk to her hours about Vipassana or philosophical stuff and everything, or like the food that I'm going to eat, or like, the heartache that I had when I ended my relationship with my boyfriend. She was just like, after all these years, I was like, I think I made a mistake. She's like, if you really want to go back, fine, go back. She's very cool about all this stuff, so she's an incredible mother,
Did you see Prabal on The Daily Show? Anyone here with Ronnie Chang? He was talking about how Prabal just loves to brag about his mom. You really do,
It's not like, honest.
I know.
Can I just tell you this? It's funny thing. Like my friends from school, and they, even when I'm not here, they go and visit her, and I always say my friends like my siblings and my mother better than they like me. I'm not even kidding you, and she is, and it's simply because I think there's this clear sense of justice, what's right and wrong, what's fair, rather. And also, I think in your parents, what you really want to see is that total acceptance, that they allow you to make mistakes, that there's room to color outside the lines, and that's what she did. That's what she did.
Well, your reverence for her is just so palpable, which brings me to the title of your book, Walk Like a Girl, which many people might use pejoratively. Yeah. But for you, it's the greatest compliment.
Yes, it was. Growing up, so when I went to an all-boys school and I would step out to my relative's house and you understand, I loved singing, I loved dancing, I loved Bollywood music, I loved in musicals, and I still do. I still dance, and I loved it. And in my household, it was encouraged. As a matter of fact, even my father also was, why don't you sing that song, or why don't you dance, Then you step outside in the real world, and they would say to me, oh, you walk like a girl, you talk like a girl, you sing like a girl. At that time, I didn't think there was anything wrong, because I was surrounded by strong women. That means then that term meant for me that I was closer to my sister, my mother, all the women, and even my superhero was Wonder Woman, and Charlie's Angels. So I never understood the negative connotation of it all. But once you step outside, the tone of it, the way they say it, and what follows after that, the punches and the blows and the physical, all that stuff made me understand that it was a term of, as you said, pejoratively. But I really wanted to take that term of perceived weakness and transform into a phrase and a term of empowerment, courage, vulnerability, softness, defiance, and everything that I associated women and anything feminine-leaning people, the complexities that comes with it. And so I wanted to celebrate that. And so I remember I was in, I think, 12th grade. I would hear it all my life, and I was like, one day, if and when I do write a book, I want to use that, Walk Like a Girl, because I thought it was powerful. And to me, just to walking like a girl is to walk in the world with softness, vulnerability, the courage to love yourself and say that I belong here, that this space is mine as much as it is yours. And I wrote this book in celebration of femininity in all forms, not to rise above it, but rise with it. And, it is how I've lived my life, often mocked, sometimes very rarely celebrated, but I lived in my own terms, and so my goal with that thing, when people hear Walk Like a Girl, I hope they understand it is not about gender. It is this idea, to me, feminine-leaning ideas are these ideas of community, collaboration, seeing each other. Because if there's any moment in mankind, this is the right now, the moment where masculinity is at display in the highest office, and the power. The masculinity looks like a caricature, almost like a drag show, to be completely honest. So I think what we really need right now is the softness, the femininity, the collaborative conversation, because that is the only way we're going to survive. So I wrote it, I'll tell you completely honest, when we were writing it, when we were editing, I was hoping the outcome would be in the office would be a female president in America. That's what I'd hoped for. And then when it didn't happen, everyone, some of the people involved in the book were like, "Oh, how do you feel about it?" And I said, "It's even more urgent that this book comes out in this time. It is almost like a siren call, what we need to be unafraid, and to see, it's simple, that the ability for us to see each other in each other's full glory is what I'm calling for,
It is so essential, but for all of those reasons, it's probably why it very well could be banned in places.
Oh my God!
I mean,
I
it's
didn't even
true
think about
when you
it.
think about it.
Well,
Yeah.
but again, for me, banning, not being part of the norm, and it's like such a familiar place. So, bring it on. Yeah.
Yes. Even though you wear this idea of walking like a girl as a badge of honor, it was really the source of so much abuse for you throughout your life. And you speak so candidly about the abuse that you endured, also sexual abuse that you endured. What was it like to bring that back from the recesses of your mind, and then to even read the audiobook where you are having to speak so many of the things that you had to endure as a boy?
I would say writing the book and then recording it was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my entire life. There's nothing been harder than this. It has been... So I highly suggest everyone not to write a memoir unless you're ready to face it. Okay, let me just put it that way. It was challenging. Putting a pen on a paper, it still is, or typing it out, you're still editing the grammar, while you're typing. So it's a slightly removed process, even though it's your story. Reading it out loud was really, really not only daunting, it was at times harrowing. It was really challenging and difficult and emotional. I had to stop recording. I broke down and cried so many times because what I'd done, again, my initial conversation, and things that I started about, in the process of achieving things, my passion, things that I wanted to do in life, I had put aside my trauma. I put aside everything that I'd been through because it didn't have a place in the path that I was going through, right? So I had to revisit that, relive that, and then to realize the confusion of it all, what it was like in a school that was, majority of the students, my peers, my classmates were really didn't understand my existence, and like bullying and all of that, physical, like, bullying, like beating up and all that stuff was happening, there was this an adult who showed me tenderness, and love and protection. And then to be kind of like taken advantage by him was not only it was, and it still is in so many ways confusing, because I trusted someone, and in that act of what he did to me, like, it was so violating. But at the time, I didn't understand, It was, to be completely honest, it was, compared to what was being thrown at me constantly by my peers and my classmates, that it was something that it was like happened once, and I could deal with it. But not real, and that's what I told myself all these years. Now, going back to it, reading it out loud, I'm shocked. I was shocked that I was alive, to be completely honest. So all the trauma that I'd been through, looking back at that kid, 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, and I'm just like, how did you survive? How did you make it through? And I just wanted to go back to that kid and be like, give him a hug, because I never did that. I really kind of like put it aside, and I went for my goals and ambitions. This is what I want to do. And now to revisit it, I realize all those years of therapy and everything had given me the tools to handle it now. But my healing process, I think, started once I finished my book and my audio recording, and I said, okay, the story's no longer mine. And then releasing the book out to all of you, to the world, it really, what it did to me was, the story's no longer mine. I give it to you all. How you hold it in your heart or share it is totally up to you guys. But in the process of it, like, my healing process is a community driven now. That's what it's going to be. It's no longer going, it was a solitary one. Now it's community driven. And for that, so I'm really grateful. As difficult, as challenging as it has been, I'm grateful for it. Because I could sit here and answer this question like normally I would do. Something like, yeah, it was great, da da da, and I give you sound bites. But what I decided to do this time around in my book conversation, and especially with someone like you I trust, is to tell the truth, because I want to make sure that everyone who listens to this, progress and success is not linear. You go up, you go back. You go up, you go back. Progress is this way. It's not like that. And oftentimes we get to see on Instagram and social media all the highlights and not anything behind it. So I just wanted to make sure that wherever you are, successful or not successful, quote unquote, I hope if there's one thing that you can guarantee yourself, I hope for yourself, is the joy that you feel, momentary. And it's not, the joy is not guaranteed to us 24/7, but the momentary joys, I hope you get it. And that's what with this book is also, so writing hasn't been an easy thing. And as I said, it's been, and then, yeah.
So I imagine this whole process has been incredibly healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where would you say you are on your healing journey now?
I would say, to be completely honest, it's almost like, I've opened the door, I've walked out, the story's there. I'm never not going to like carry it with me, because that's who I am. Those stuff also like really propelled me to do whatever I've achieved. I think it's a path, healing. What I realize is also, healing is not like you do this thing and you healed. Healing is a lifelong journey. And as I said, with therapy and my mom's insistence on Vipassana, silent meditation retreat, all of this stuff, and constant conversation, journaling, writing down, it's a process. That's what I'm realizing now. So I'm in the process. Let's just put it this way.
Well, I just have to ask you, again, you speak so candidly about so many moments throughout your journey. Have you heard from any of the people that you wrote about?
No, I haven't. Perhaps simply because the book is just available here right now in this part of the world. Once it, comes out in India and in Nepal and everything, maybe the conversation will start there. And also, just so that I have been able to write this book simply because I don't hold any anger. I really don't. I've let it go a long time back, because what I chose to do was because I didn't belong, and in that unbelonging, I found myself. When they said that I wasn't part of their group, all these boys said, you don't belong here, you're not like one of us. It freed me from doing things by the boundaries. So I could, as I said, color outside the lines, be free. I could set my own standards. I could dream my own dreams. And simply because I had my mother and my siblings who accepted that and, celebrated that. So actually, what happened to me in childhood prepared me for the world. This world, and it really also freed me to, as I said, to be really dream the most incredibly impossible dreams and hopefully make them come true in the process. So I did not write this book. It's not a salacious book, take down on anyone. I didn't want it to be. My sister insisted on two things. She said, I want the book to be unpretentious and I want the book to have grace. So I hope it does have grace. And it's not a takedown. All I'm trying to tell is, I've let go of all of that stuff. I'm free of it. So I don't even expect them to write it. To be completely honest, I don't even care. What I care is all of you guys. When you pick up the book, read the book, I hope it resonates with you. I hope you share it with other people. That's all I care about. It's more, future facing, I guess. Yeah.
One of the things that I so appreciated about, one of the things I appreciate about you now, but it started when you were a boy, is that you always fought back, always. And you still have some of the scars to tell.
Yeah.
Where did you find the strength to always fight back?
I think my mother. I mean, I know Ronnie would be like, I know you talk about his mother all the time, but...
Here we go again.
Yeah, exactly. But it truly is, and that's what I'm saying. The role models are not oftentimes, far away. It's within your house. And my mother, I saw that. She was a warrior for justice and fairness, as simple as that, within the confines of our homes or, in their family. And so, I don't know, that's where I found the courage to show up. It was just not me in school who used to get bullied. There were other guys also. And most of them kept quiet, kept their head down. And so they wouldn't get bullied. I fought back. I refused to be, if you don't see me the way I am, unapologetically, unabashed, I'm not bothering you. You're bothered because of your narrow sense of self. And so I was saying, no way am I going to shrink, And that was difficult for them. That here was a weak-looking, effeminate guy who swayed and, sashayed and sang and, and was somehow challenging their territory and status quo. And nothing has changed for me now. When I came to America, America has this beautiful PR pitch about American dream. All of us are welcome. You'll feel the equal opportunity and everything. It's a lot more complex than that. When you come here, we are celebrated for our suffering, not for our joy. Oftentimes America and the majority are comfortable being the white savior, that we're going to help you out of your misery, but our joy, our stories, somehow, if it doesn't fit within their thing, it becomes an issue for them. So for me, even in my career, even in my, my path of as an adult, I just was unapologetically, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, and it rattled a lot of, and ruffled a lot of feathers.
And that has applied to so many aspects of your life. Yeah. I mean, I think we've all been told at different points in our lives to stay in your lane, stay in our lane.
God, I hate that.
You've never stayed in your lane. In the world of fashion, but even in politics, when it comes to human rights. Where did that confidence come from?
It's just, listen, if you belong to any marginalized group, you know what it is. You look in the mirror and it doesn't reflect you back. the popular culture, the celebration is nobody who looks like us, you know, and so it's a lonely thing, it's a solitary endeavor, and so I realized the minute I have a platform, the minute I have a voice, the minute I have a mic, or an audience of one, I'll make sure that how I felt, lonely, alone, isolated, scared, I want to make sure that I don't make someone feel that way if I have the power. That was it. And then obviously, besides seeing it from my mother and my siblings, and you know, it was just like, it was just inherently me because I know what it feels like to be other. Even today, I know what it likes to feel walk into a room wearing all purple suit, you know, with a, you know, like in this glass. I know what it is. But my goal is always, I always say, when you show up in your full glory, unapologetically, unabashedly, that unnerves the patriarchy. And patriarchy has all of us on a chokehold right now. And so my thing is, in every possible way, the revolution and resistance is not always on the street or with the biggest microphone or biggest crowd. It is every single moment, every single day. And like it or not, in this particular moment, we all have to be there as revolutionaries in the confines of your home or in the confines of your room or out on the street. So how I look at it is like, I just want to be happy. I just want to be myself. And, you know, hopefully all of you will be, I'm looking at them.
And be a revolutionary while you're at it.
Yeah, why not? It's fun. It's fun. You know, it's fun to, you know, rattle some cages.
Rebel.
Yeah.
Love it.
It is, but and simply because if you agree to what I say, if I agree to you, like if all of us agree to each other, there's not much conversation, right? It's like let's say that's why. For me, the color purple is also the combination of red and blue. You know, that's how purple comes through. And so how I look at it is always opposite ideas should exist, coexist. That's why I don't really, from the opposite, people who, have opposing views in politics and life and everything, I welcome those conversations because with conversation, it leads to discussions, and oftentimes discussions leads to solution and seeing each other and celebration, hopefully, of each other. I don't like to be in my echo chamber of like-minded people and just, be like, oh, look at the other side. They are like crazy. And I don't like that kind of conversation. Let's bring them on. Let's have this conversation. Let's have a drink or two. Let's have a party. Let's dance. And let's really seriously talk about this. And I think the two things in life I always say that's important for me, depth and levity, And I think we can do that. And I think sooner we realize and not be afraid of the fact that, the opposite side isn't scary. Like we realize that and be like, you know what, let's reach out, let's have a conversation. And we might feel like they should be the one. Let's not. Let's be the ones to do it. That's how I look at it. That's as simple as that for me.
Do you ever get, at this point, obviously not, but I wondered if at any point you got nervous about being so outspoken. Especially as someone who was the only person who looked like you in this industry that has been doing things a certain way for so long.
Nervous. So I think, I wasn't, because I knew what I was speaking about was, even though I was the only one, and all the changes that we're seeing in the world, especially in my industry and in culture, I never thought it would happen in my lifetime. Even then, I started to speak out about all these injustices simply because that was the right thing to do for me. I didn't think about the consequences of it. It really did bother a lot of people, and the amount of the hate mails, the messages, the ostracizing, it was pretty brutal. I won't lie about it. It was not an easy thing to do. But and I didn't think I was doing anything courageous. I was just speaking my truth. I just did not. Apparently, my mom said this to me. Apparently, when I was a little kid, I used to say, "My mom, I know my worth. The world just needs to catch up to it." I used to say, I would be annoyed with that kid, to be completely honest. But I was this precocious child, and that's how I feel that way. It's like, I don't think I'm fabulous than anyone else. Let me just put it that way. I just have a sense of self simply because the core in me, the deep in me, is unwaveringly good. I know that about myself. I might take mistakes or do something that's like, doesn't fall within the lines, but I'm also someone who's willing to make mistakes, so, and I also know that I don't have all the answers. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
I want to talk about something that happened during the pandemic. I mentioned how a number of us kind of came together to speak out against the violence. But in the fashion world, some of you all came together as well in unprecedented ways. Talk about why, in the fashion world specifically, it was so unprecedented for you all to support each other.
Yes, in the fashion world, but also in the popular culture. Like, people hadn't seen people who look like us coming together and, as I said earlier, giving into joy. Because for the majority, people who look like us have existed in suffering. That's all they know. So when we came unapologetically ourselves and enjoying and celebrating the celebrations, all my friends, they just didn't know what. And then they quickly opened their minds, and then I have to give it to the industry. And they were just like, oh my God, we feel the joy that you guys are, celebrating. And it was simply because the biggest resistance to our existence is joy, not giving into cynicism, being optimistic. And we all...
But you actually took a stand at a certain point, and a number of Asian designers would go and sit together at one another's fashion shows.
Yes.
That didn't happen before.
It didn't, because singularly, you can create a noise. Collectively, you can create a revolution. And as I said, revolution, like just us sitting in the front row, people were shocked. People were like, it doesn't ever happen because, it is competitive industry.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we don't celebrate each other. My philosophy is there's enough real estate for all of us. We all tell different stories. I am genuinely happy for other people's success. I always feel that, like, let's say even with my friends, with my peers, other designers, if a bunch of them are doing well, that means the health of the industry is great. That means I'm going to benefit too. I've always been that way. I've never understood this sense of, like, yes, you want to achieve, but the sense of competition with each other, And so when we showed up, they were like, what just happened? And we just didn't show up. We showed up. This is like the subtle version of, how we showed up. Let's just put it this way. We were full on, and why not, And I think the power of that, we understood, and we all understood, and I understood this. You can read about things, we can hear about things, but when you see it, you start believing it. That was very much like what I thought. And that was the power of visual, and fashion is that. So, that's how it started.
Well, I want to take some questions from the audience, but before that, I just want to ask one question. I mean, when you think back on this storied career that you've had, what has been your proudest moment? Is there a look? Is there someone you've dressed? Is there an experience that you consider to be your proudest moment?
It's so... I feel like I'm speaking like a true Asian now,
That's okay.
I haven't achieved yet. It's like, let me just, I think we all know what it is, We're like, your mom was like, don't be bragging, So I would say, oh my Lord, and I'm not pretending to be humble. When you have so many goals to achieve, all these stuff, I'm grateful for it. I'm fully present. I'm very, very grateful for it. But I will say, because you have so many things that you want to impact and create, I don't really sit, and I've never thought about, oh, I've achieved this. I've never. But I will say two things. When we started our foundation, my siblings and like-minded friends back home in Nepal, Shiksha Foundation Nepal, almost 14 years ago, and the work that we've been able to do quietly and diligently. And we run this organization with zero overheads, and 100% of what we raise goes there. And now and these were like, inmates' children, street workers' children. Now to see after all these years, they're becoming doctors and engineers and artists and musicians, first of their villages. It has been the most gratifying thing. It's been the most humbling. And, But I will say, I don't know about proud, but I'll say one emotional thing for me. It's not I'm grateful for the moments like, when the former First Lady Michelle Obama wore, or like, Kamala Harris and Sarah Jessica, Kate Middleton, all of that. I'm really, really grateful for it. But I'll never forget this moment in Nepal when I was back in this place called New Road. And I was just like, kind of going through like all these like past traumas and everything. But I was excited to be back home also. And I was like walking on the street. And this older woman with this younger girl came like walking by. And the young girl directed, "Oh my God, you're Prabal Gurung." Like that's what she said. And I was like, "Yes, I am." And she's, "Can I take a picture and everything?" And then she said something to her mother, like and the older woman, and she nodded, and I know, and like she said, "Malai thats, malai thats," and then she looked at me, held my face in her hand, and she said, "You're no longer just your mother's son. You're entire Nepal's mother's son." And I'll never forget that woman, because in that particular moment, she truly saw me. She truly saw me. And I still remember her vividly, and the impact of those words. It has given me hope. It has been my light in the most darkest hours. And so that I would say is a moment that I hold so, so dearly. So that's the one that I think I'm the most proud of, because here was a woman, and she didn't even want to take a picture, just so that and because and here's a woman who clearly had no interest in fashion and all of that, but she understood the work that I did. It was not a social work, and it was just my being there and being a designer and doing that, and that impact, and and it had to be a mother, and that it's not lost on me that she saw me. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, everybody take a breath.
Oh my God, sorry. Like, I hope you guys are not bored.
No, is there anyone in the room who has questions? And John over here has a microphone. He will come pass it around.
Hello, namaste.
Namaste.
So you've been very welcoming whenever I've spoken with you, Prabal. You've been so warm and welcoming.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to dig in. So I'm an author as well. So besides reading and sharing, please review as well.
Yes, thank you for
Right?
saying that. Thank you for saying that. Yes,
Yeah.
it matters.
So my question is more about, I am in education and I work with children. What is your message for children, especially queer South Asian children that are here or back in South Asia? Because they have a very unique predicament.
Yeah.
And what is the message for them?
That you matter, that your story matters, your existence matters, that you are more than enough, and that it is okay to give into vulnerability, softness, and all the highs and the lows, that, and simply things will get better. Just to hang in there. And that's what I would say, Yeah.
In the back.
Namaste. Thank you so much today. My friend and I came here this afternoon because we are entering into the fashion business. We've been working on it for half a year, and it was really important for us to come to see you and your brand for what it represents for Asians. Because to your point, growing up, there weren't a lot of people who looked like us on Teen Vogue or, the fashion shows. Everyone looked different.
Yeah.
So it's great seeing you show that we do belong and we have a space there. I wanted to ask, what advice do you have for young designers today who are entering the fashion space? What is something the person that you were when you first entered would have wanted to know that you know now?
There's several things, I want to say, but I'll keep it. I would say you really have to love what you're doing. Okay, the glamour portion of it is 5% if you're lucky. Okay, 5% of what we do is glamorous. Rest of it is brutal, arduous work. There's no deny. But if you love it, which I do, like I always say, my work is my vacation, my holiday, the creating part of it, not dealing with people. That's a whole different story, But, so you have to really, really love it. If you love it, the process, not the result. The process, then you're golden. You'll go through ups and downs, but you'll still manage it. And then to realize that, why is it that you want to be a designer? Why do you want to create is it a story that you want to tell? And it's also okay for you to say, you know what, I want to sell a bunch of clothes and make money and be rich. That's also fine. That's perfectly fine. You just have to be very clear about why you want to do it. And I always say, the balancing act of reality and delusion, pragmatism, it's a very important thing for a designer. You have to, and a creative person and an entrepreneur, you have to have enough delusion to believe that you'll go from point A to, let's say, D, C, E, like wherever, but also enough pragmatism to understand it requires hard work. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
In the back.
Hello, Prabal.
Hello.
I'm very excited to be here because I'm actually here to ask you this question. Similar like you, I'm from Kathmandu, born and raised.
You are? Okay.
And then I feel like fashion. And I feel like fashion and food is like two pillars of like modern pop culture, or like it has been that way throughout, right? But being from Nepal, I ran away from home to be a cook in New York City. So I feel like for someone like me who has been trying to like pursue something that isn't like the normal thing to do, because like in fashion where you have to learn everything from the basic, Nepali dhaga topi etauti ta eta गर्ने कुरा छैन, like you can't that wasn't something that was relatable to me, because right now I do run a Nepali supper club and I work at a 3-star French restaurant as a cook, and 5% of what we do is glamorous like yours, but the rest of it is like 70 hours of work, hard work, right? So when you're not in that point B and you're far away from home, you're in New York City and you're hustling, like what was it that you did that like kept you going?
Oh, wow. I don't want to sugarcoat things, so I'm just going to tell you, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. There were days I would crawl up in my bed and I was like, am I going to make it through? There were days and there would be days. But what was really, when I look back at it, it was like, I just had, besides having full faith in what I wanted to achieve, and it wasn't an ambition that mirrored anyone else's. Do you know what I mean? It was like something, I knew I had to create my own path. I knew I had to create my own story. That was one aspect of it. But one thing was, I was willing to work my ass off. I kid you not. I was like, no matter what, whatever it is, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have fun doing it. And I would tell myself that, and I started believing it. I enjoyed. That's one thing that I will say about myself. I'm unafraid of hard work, and having said that, I'm not saying people who are, not being able to, like, let's say, achieve things that aren't hardworking, but sometimes we focus. It's just about, it's almost like recalibrating, right? You really have to stop comparing yourself to someone else. That's what it is. For someone, I would say the success may seem like having a name on a big building, right? For someone, it might just be dressing 1 or 2 people. For someone, it might be owning a Michelin star restaurant, but for someone, it could be feeding people enough that feeds their soul. With that food, you tell a story, you make a community visible. It all varies. So you have to really go and understand why you want to be a chef, okay? Why do you want to tell this story? Why do you want to cook? Why do you want to feed people? My thing was, through clothes, I wanted to make people feel seen, visible, really empowered. Because I always say this, I don't make clothes to make women look beautiful. They already are. My job is to match up to their strength, the complexities. That's my job. So I was very clear about that. So if you're clear about why you want to do that, I think that's it. And as I said, success is not like this. It goes back and forth. So if you can just be clear about, and all the noise, like, oh, you need to be this, you need to be that. No, take your time. And I was talking to my sister, who's visiting me here, and we're going for walks in the morning. There's one lesson in life that the universe teaches you, and that is of patience. That's it. Everything that happens in our life is to teach you patience. Patience, patience, and patience. That's what it is. I didn't have it. I still don't have it. I'm like an extremely impatient, but I had to learn the hard way. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. You want to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay.
Where is the? Oh, sorry. We'll take two more.
Okay, we'll
just
take
two. Yeah, just yeah. So yeah.
Thank you very much for being here this evening and sharing your story with us. In your book, you wrote a little bit about your time at Bill Blass.
Yes.
And you talk a lot about your relationship with the management of the company.
Yeah.
And I was curious to ask you this question after I read that about, as someone who, and I appreciate the question that was asked earlier about, the aspiring designer getting into the business of fashion. As an aspiring entrepreneur getting into the business of fashion, what advice would you have, based on your experience in the past, what would you tell someone who's building a business, who's not a designer, but who wants to bring designers in? How would they best create an environment that's conducive for someone like you to work effectively and be happy in an environment where we can, mutually work together and not end up, running out of money or getting sold or having all those unfortunate things happen for someone who's very inexperienced in the fashion world?
Spoken like a future CEO. I or present. I would say, fashion industry, like any in the industry, as a matter of fact, restaurant, like in hospitality or film, it's not a quick buck thing. It really isn't. Now there is. It all depends on what kind of brand that you want to create, what kind of environment that you want to create. I've had so many investors come our way and be like, "Oh, we want to be the next LVMH." I hate that. Be the first something. It doesn't need to be the biggest thing. It can be a small thing, right? And so I would say for anyone who's the business side of it is to really have that clarity. Like, what kind of brand do you want to create? A luxury brand? For instance, for me, I wanted to create the luxury brand, right? Which is unheard of as someone without a trust fund or any kind of investment. I built it up. When I launched my brand, I went on unemployment. I had a little bit of savings. That's how I built it up. And I still own my business. It's still an independent, self-financed brand. It is still growing. Do you know what I mean? So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with working my ass off. So now, to create that environment, you have to, it's a fine line between CEO and the creative person, is like understanding each other and mutually respecting each other. I always see the downfall of it often happens when the CEO wants to be the star. I'll tell you this much. You have to understand the creative director, the visionary, is the person who has this creative idea of like what the brand should be. But that is not going to work if you don't have an incredible CEO. Like, for instance, Tom Ford had Dominica Di Soleil, Calvin Klein had Barry Schwartz, and the running thing in the industry is nobody knows what Barry Schwartz looked like, who he looks like. But he built a $1 billion company, so that's what I would say. Yes. One, okay. Sorry. Oh yeah, I remember you. You're on Instagram. Yes, running around asking people.
Yeah, grabbing questions.
Yeah, forcing questions. Yeah.
Now it's a personal.
But I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I first of all just wanted to say thank you so much. Your words are so inspiring for us all. And Pride Month is coming up. I'm just wondering if you have any plans or like how are you going to celebrate Pride Month with your fellow community?
Hello. I mean, I don't know how else to say Pride more than this, like possibly I should have like a rainbow crown. But but jokes aside, every day is, I know it sounds so corny and cheesy, but every day is Pride for me. Like that, I show up like this all the time. Showing up unapologetically, that's what it is. And how I'm going to celebrate is like really sharing stories. And oftentimes, like any marginalized group, that we are always supposed to be successful, all that stuff. Like sometimes Pride is also just about celebration, glitter, and all of that stuff. My hope this time around is that we talk about healing the trauma that we all went through, because we really need to do that. Oftentimes we don't allow ourselves, and I've seen it happen to a lot of my friends in the LGBTQI community, where it catches up. right? And they're running away from the trauma and the pain. So my goal is, with this kind of conversation, I'm able to open stories, open channels, like where people are able to say, you know what? Yeah, I too am messy. I too am soft. I too am sometimes, I don't know what it is. And hopefully meeting the man of my life. I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's what I would say. Unapologetic joy is what it is. I'm going to ask one. I'm going to give you one more question there, if that's okay. Yeah.
Hi, thank you.
Of course.
So my question is towards your approach. So I have been a recent study of Buddhism and Dharma and all the Vedic traditions, and I'm learning Sanskrit and stuff, which is part of why I love the Asia Society. But given that you come from like the heaven of, all of that, and in your Nepali tradition, it seems everything I was picking up was very like straight Dharma coded. Like everything was very Vedic and Dharma just in your nature. How do you feel that's influenced your life's work and your approach to things?
First of all, thank you for that question. Growing up, like people who grew up in Nepal would probably understand. We take those things for granted. Sometimes it's just that is. When you leave, you realize all of a sudden you start feeling there's something missing. And I would say, yet again, my mother, who is like a big, she practices Vipassana. Vipassana, if you don't know, is a silent meditation practice that she does. So she recently came back from 45 days retreat. She's been doing it for more than 25 years. So she was the one who insisted on me taking it up. And I started doing...
How do you do that?
How?
You, I mean. I love you.
Literally,
I love you.
I know. I thought I was like, I had it all together. Like so far, I was like, I'm like giving all this dueling. I hate you. Like, I shouldn't have called a friend. I knew it. It was difficult. I won't lie. It was so challenging, and it simply started because I would call my mother up and I said, Mom, like so and so is wearing my stuff, so and so, and I'd be like really excited about it. And so she said to me one day, you are this euphoric about your success and all the achievements. You're going to be that depressed when it hits bottom low, because it is going to. That's just how life is. Find a middle ground. And I didn't understand at that time. And she started exposing me to Vipassana. And I had ended a relationship of almost, quite some time, 7 years. It really broke me, I'd never loved anyone as much as I did. And I'm grateful for it. My heart expanded, but it broke me. And around that time was when my mom said, why don't you embrace this? So I went to Vipassana. Man, it was sitting down and just like meditating. And what happens is, we're used to, I'm sure a lot of people know this, but we're so used to our mind being constantly stimulated by the outside world. Now, all of a sudden, there's nothing to stimulate you. You don't have your phone. You're not talking to anyone. So it's all your memories, and it starts to come back. And things that came back, it was hard. It was hard. Third day, fourth day, fifth day. Towards the sixth day was when things started to kind of calm down. And I was like, oh my God. It happened that by the time I finished, I wanted to do 5 more days. It was like that amazing. It was the best holiday that happened. And when I came back, my mom was in New York, and I explained to her like what had happened. And she said to me, it's not your success. I'm grateful for your success and everything. That's all great. The biggest gift that you've given to me is this, because now you no longer are alone. You found a tool to take care of yourself. Even when I leave this planet, I know you'll be safe. So I would say that was it. So anyone, yeah. Beautiful. All right. Okay.
Okay. Can you probably just tell us what next? What should we expect next from Prabal Gurung?
There are a lot of plans. I don't really like talking about the plans till it happened. I remember when I signed the book deal, my agent was like, "Oh, let's announce it," and I was like, "No, let's just finish it. Let me finish it, and let me finish." Because it's I guess it's the cultural difference. I will say that much. I think here we like to posture, like, yeah, this is what I'm like. No. Let me just do it when it's ready, when it's going to come out. Let's just do it then. So I won't, but. there are a lot of hopes and plans. I hope like I find other tools to continue to tell the stories. I hope I'm able to build community. My biggest dream is, one thing that I will talk about is I hope we're able to come together to build a museum of some sort for the Asian diaspora. That is extremely crucial. I've understood that because monuments and buildings sometimes, hold our stories from ancestors, and it's very important. But my biggest hope and my dream is one day, very soon, that I get to dress the first female president of America. That's what I would say. Yeah, that's my dream. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing.
No, of course. And thank you. Thank you for flying all the way. Thank you for the friendship. And honestly, thank you for your time. I know, it really means a lot that you guys are here. I know it's a Tuesday night. It's not easy, but thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I believe everyone will be receiving a copy of Prabal's book who attended. So thank you all so much
A
for
signed
being here.
copy.
And have a beautiful
you.
night. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.